Count me down. Okay. I'm Joe Garrity from the Close-Up Foundation. Welcome to Close-Up's Google Hangout for the Google Hangout series for the 2014-2015 school year. These sessions are designed to connect students from across the country with their elected officials in Washington, D.C. Today we are joined by Westlake and North Point High Schools. Say hello. Okay. We've got Frederick Douglass High School in Washington, D.C. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have Frederick Douglass? Yeah. All right. We have La Plata High School. That's it. Good.
All right, La Plata.
And we have Parkdale High School. All from Maryland's 5th Congressional District. Our guest today is their representative. Representative Steny Hoyer was born in New York City and grew up in Maryland. Graduated from Suitland High School, the University of Maryland, and Georgetown Law School. His first elected position was to the Maryland State Senate, where he served 13 years before being elected to the United States House of Representatives in a special election back in 1981. Representative Hoyer became part of the Democratic leadership team in the House when he was elected Minority Whip for the 108th Congress, becoming the first Marylander to hold that position. When the Democrats won the majority in 2007, Representative Hoyer became the House Majority Whip for the 110th and 111th Congress, before returning to the Minority Whip position in 2011. Please welcome your distinguished representative in Congress, the Honorable Steny Hoyer.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks for the applause. I think that was La Plata. Good for you. I'm pleased to be here. Joe, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I thank Google as well for this extraordinary technology, which allows us to be hooked up and in real time see one another, communicate with one another. It's so important for your generation students to be on top of this technology, to utilize this technology and realize its potential for bringing us together, exchanging ideas, making us more productive, making us a more successful economy. The technology that you have was unheard of in my day when I was your age. The computers were still about 30 years away from being on people's desktops when I was in college. So you can see how much has happened in the last just few number of years, not so much from your perspective, but from mine. I'm honored to serve the people of the 5th Congressional District in the Congress of the United States, and I'm honored to have this opportunity to hear from you and listen to you and to share views with you. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, first question, we have Westlake.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Hoyer. I'm Georgia Benson from Westlake High School. And
Give me your name again?
Georgia Benson.
Gloria. Okay, Gloria.
Oh, Georgia, like the state.
Georgia. Okay, fine. They just turned up the volume on my computer here, my sound system, so I can hear you a little better.
Okay. Well, my first question is, how will you, as a leader in the minority party, work with the majority party to pass a meaningful legislation on raising the minimum wage?
Well, I'm a very strong proponent of raising the minimum wage. The minimum wage now is some 45% less than it was in 1968. In other words, in the last 46 years, those earning the minimum wage have seen their purchasing power decrease by almost half. That's bad for them. It's bad for our economy. And so I think that it's very important for us to increase the minimum wage so that people working 40 hours a week are not living in poverty. In America, we expect people to work, and very frankly, they also expect us to pay them a living wage. So that I want to work with my Republican colleagues to do that. My view is that that proposition has a majority of votes on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. But unfortunately, it's not being brought to the floor for a vote. So, Georgia, I'm going to continue to work with my Republican colleagues either in the lame duck that's coming up after the election or in the next session of the Congress of the United States, to have that brought to the floor, have it voted upon, and hopefully it will succeed in at least paying people the equivalent of what they were making in 1968 if they were working for the minimum wage.
Thank
North
you.
Point High School. Oh, sorry?
Hi, I'm Kristen Cree, and I'm from North Point High School.
Hi, Kristen.
How do you believe raising the federal minimum wage will affect the small businesses, not just in our district, but throughout the United States?
I think historically, Kristen, as we've raised the minimum wage from time to time, and not unfortunately frequently enough because we haven't kept pace with inflation, and so that people working for the minimum wage have seen, as you heard me say, their purchasing power, their standard of living, if you will, decreased when that was not done. So I believe that small businesses will be positively affected, not negatively affected. Why do I believe that? Because if there are more consumers of goods and services who can afford to buy more of goods and services that are offered on the open market, then small businesses who do exactly that will be advantaged, in my opinion. And 61% in a polling of small businesses indicate that they are for increasing the minimum wage. I know there are some who are concerned that they will not be able to afford that wage, but very frankly, if you have a job that is available, that you need to have somebody working, then you need to pay them a wage that does not leave them in poverty and makes work rewarding. That is, after all, the private market concept, incentive for effort and risk-taking and investment. So that I think small businesses will be advantaged, not disadvantaged, by raising the minimum wage.
Frederick Douglass High School, you're up next. Can we hear him?
Is Frederick Douglass with us?
Muted us.
Oh, Frederick Douglass.
We got muted.
There we go.
Can they hear us?
Go ahead.
Good afternoon,
Can hear you.
Congressman Hoyer.
Now I can hear you.
My name is Dante.
I'm losing you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dante Faison from Frederick Douglass High School. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and also thank the Close Up Foundation. And this afternoon, I have a question for you. According to the data presented by Close Up, the majority of Americans who earn minimum wage are between the ages of 16 and 25, which means they are still in school. Couldn't raising the minimum wage assist them in paying their college bills, books, tuitions? So why wouldn't the government want to help, especially since the cost of education is so expensive?
Well, Donna, you raise a number of very interesting and important issues, one of which is the cost of higher education. One of the agenda items that we have as Democrats is to ensure that college is affordable and accessible for students who can and want to pursue higher education. That's good for them, of course, but as importantly, it's very good for the country. Now, raising the minimum wage for whomever you raise it for will make them more able to participate in growing our economy, purchasing goods and services that they need. In this case, you represent education, and make them more able to afford it. That will be good for our economy and good for our society. And so I think that whether it's a 17-year-old working or a 27-year-old working, and some suggest, for instance, making a differential so that young people make less for doing the same work that somebody older, i.e. 10 years older, 27 years of age or so. The problem with that is it is an incentive not to hire 27-year-olds, and said another way, a disincentive to hire 27-year-olds and an incentive to hire young people. Young people need employment, but of course, people who are out of school, on the market, have children, they need employment as well. So that I think we need to have, in my view, a uniform minimum wage so that there will not be disincentives to not hire those who very badly need jobs. And I think that that's the policy that we have pursued and will pursue.
Okay, La Plata High School, you're up next.
Hi, Representative Hoyer. My name is Carly Zimmerman, and our question is, would net neutrality take incentives away from cable companies to make innovations since it would level the playing field?
Well, I think most Americans believe that they want to have access to the internet and get the same kinds of speed and access that others get. This is obviously a complicated issue. The FCC, as you probably know, Carly, is now considering this issue and trying to figure out how do we assure both that the internet companies, providers, are comfortable with the policies that we pursue, and that citizens have access to equal speeds and equal access to use of the internet. So I want to see what the FCC does. I think this is a very, very important issue, both for providers to be incentivized in providing access and for citizens to have full and fair access. But this is, as you point out, a pretty controversial issue where the providers are concerned that net neutrality will prevent them from following what they believe to be good business practices and to grow their business with large users. So we'll see what the FCC recommends, and then we're going to review that, and the Congress will take some action.
Parkdale High School, you're up next. Okay,
hello, Parkdale.
There you go. Parkdale, do you have your question?
My question is, if this new proposal on net neutrality is accepted...
Tell me who's speaking. Tell me
Alexander Rauda.
Okay.
Speak a little louder.
Okay. You speak louder and ask your question. If everybody in the background could keep quiet, okay, so we can hear. It's a little hard to hear him.
Hello, Representative Hoyer. My name is Alexander from Parkdale in Maryland. And
hi, Alexander. Go ahead.
Our question is, if this new proposal on net neutrality is accepted, how will it affect me both as a student and as a person living in the middle class?
Well, as I said, the FCC is now considering this, Alexander, and what I want to assure is that it will not adversely affect you and all of your colleagues and all of our citizens. The internet is an extraordinarily powerful way that we have communicated with one another, tried to bring our views to the attention of others, and that is a very, very important ability that you have and your fellow students have to access the internet on an equal and fair basis. We want to assure that that continues. The FCC is grappling with that question now, and when they report out a recommendation, the Congress is going to look at that and consider it carefully to make sure that you are not disadvantaged.
Has done such a good job of answering these questions succinctly. We have some time for some more questions. I believe Westlake High School has one for us.
Okay, my question is, if the minimum wage is raised, how can you guarantee that companies will not cut the number of employees they have?
Well, because historically, while there may be a minor change initially, we have found in the very, very near future, it does not adversely affect numbers of employees, numbers of jobs. What affects numbers of jobs is demand. If consumers are buying, consumers are demanding services, then employers will hire people to meet those demands and to make greater profits. If the demand is not there, then they won't. And as I pointed out in my previous answers to the questions, Georgia, the fact that 25 million people in America will be positively affected by raising the minimum wage will give a real shot in the arm to the economy and provide more purchasing power for millions and millions of consumers. That'll help the economy. It'll help businesses. not hurt them.
Okay, Representative Hoyer, we have a little bit of time for some closing remarks, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to meet with our students today, and we appreciate you kicking off our inaugural Close-Up Google Hangout.
Well, Joe, I'm glad to. I didn't know it was the inaugural kickoff, but I'm glad to be at the beginning. And I want to congratulate you. I want to thank the Close-Up Foundation. I want to thank Google, all for facilitating this ability to have some interface. Here I am sitting in Washington, D.C. Students are at their schools. What a wonderful way technology has found to bring us together in real time, seeing one another, talking to one another, and learning from one another. Wonderful technology. It's going to make us a better society. The technology is going to make us more productive, and hopefully it will bring us closer together. Thank you, students. Learn all you can, apply it, and make our country better. See ya.
Thank you very much, and that wraps it up for today's first edition.